What's going on, guys? We have reached another week, another Tuesday night. So we have a live stream for you with a great panel of guests. Real quick, we are reaching the end of August. I don't know about you, but if you're a parent like me, kind of excited the kids are getting ready to go back to school. Some kids have already started going back to school. But either way, we are here to talk about some great comic book topics tonight. Before we get into that, let's bring the panelists in here in a new setup, in a new room. We got Blue Green Artifacts from Instagram. Tony, what is going on?
What's going on, Brian? How are you, man?
Doing good. Week's been busy. We're only in the middle of the work week, but keep chopping wood, right? And keep going through it.
Yeah.
But always get excited for this night with good friends, good people, talk about some comic book topics. We also have, from Tales from the Flip Side YouTube channel, Mr. Brian McClay.
What up, everybody? Really stoked for tonight. Looking forward to all the topics on the docket.
Yeah, we got some great stuff we're going to talk about. And from YouTube as well, we have Dank Comics. Mr. Dan, what's going on, buddy?
What up? Just coming from King's room to your room on the all over the internet.
I love it. We got some new visuals and people's backgrounds tonight for a couple people, but no change. But that's for good reason. Always has that awesome background with his little slab ding dong behind him. But Mr. Comic Man Andy himself, producer, what's going on?
What's up, guys? Yeah, tons of great topics this week. I'm excited because I feel knowledgeable across the board this week. I paid attention. I did my homework.
Yeah, and it's funny because like we were talking about before we came on the air, this first topic we're going to talk about I was super excited about because I didn't see many news outlets reporting it yesterday morning. I was like, oh, we got a good one. And sure enough, by the afternoon and by today, everyone's talking about it. So we're definitely going to talk about it. And there's big news. We all know about James Tynion. He's been writing some monster books lately, and a lot of that is credit to due to Batman. He's no stranger to Batman. He's written it before. He's writing it now, but he won't be writing it for much longer, right? He's quitting DC Comics coming up. And not only is he quitting it, but he's going over to creator-owned. Isn't that right?
Oh, boy. Here we go. Another creator-owned group that is better than the next creator-owned group and better than that one. I asked on a show the other day, maybe it was last night on the Flip Side show, what makes this so much different than any of the other creator-owned groups? And I came down to the fact that it is 100% because it seems like there's no CEO or no president that can say it can only be this many pages. You know, you got to have this many ads in it. You got to that, because other than that, I don't see why they can't just take their stuff to Image. Isn't Image creator owned? Isn't Boom creator owned? Or am I wrong there?
No, you're right. I just think you haven't seen Joe Dirt because you can't have no in your heart. I'm just kidding. But I mean, you prove a point, but I also get somewhat excited when there's these new, I won't say startups, so to say, but and so not only that, but within the past week, we also saw that Scotty Young is going over there, right?
Yep.
And what's the name of it again?
Substack. You got it. Substack. Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder's over there. It sounds like he's only going to be teaching, but he's there. It sounds like there's maybe a pull on this is the teaching aspect. It sounds like there's a big teaching aspect to this that the guys are into, the newsletter and not only writing
master class comics mixed together.
Great. That's a great way to put it. Perfect.
Brian, I know that you've had a chance to interview Ross Ritchie a couple times. From what I understand, the different creator-owned publishers, they do operate differently. Isn't that correct? Where some of them, they get no market, like Image, from what I understand, you get no marketing push from the company itself. You're responsible for all your own marketing, whereas Boom will promote your books, but they get a cut of any licensing deals. So I would imagine the details of whatever this new company, how those contracts work, might be the reason to go there.
Yeah, and it's always something to create your own type venture, right? I mean, I know one person that's kind of on that is Comic Man Andy, right?
Yeah, so I was actually just getting logged in and looking at it again and kind of refreshed my memories. So Substack kind of looks like a rudimentary startup post-board situation, whatever we called it back in the day in the 90s. We might be catching this on the very early slide. I don't know. I had never heard of Substack before this, before you guys actually posted it in the Patreon group. And I hemmed and hawed all day looking at this. And I absolutely love Tynan's work. And I'm like, that's one of the evolutions I found myself making, or found myself on kind of evolutionary track as a comic book collector, is instead of buying Marvel or DC or Image or being brand sensitive, I became creative team sensitive. And I started following around like Lemire and Declan Shelby and some other creators that I absolutely love. And so Tynan, I hemmed and hawed all day yesterday, and I finally broke down and I signed up for it, and I did the elite tier, and I'll share exactly why I did that elite tier. And if this is going to develop something new, so be it. I'm okay with reading comics digitally, but that elite tier I signed up for because he's releasing 6 comic books to each person that signed up for the elite tier over the course of 12 months, if I remember correctly. Well, another friend of mine, Skeff's Comic Knowledge, reminded me, hey man, just take that number and divide it by 6. And he's like $40 some odd, just under $50 per cover. He's like, that's not shabby for what potentially could be a hard to get, low count Tynan book that you might not see anywhere else besides this. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. That's actually, I think there's more risk in getting a $250 mystery box out there in the world than there is doing this. Because I love Tynan's work, and we always preach buy what you love and you love what you buy, right? So I don't think I'm going to be disappointed by those covers or by this experience for any means. And it's only one shot, like right now. If I don't want to do it again, I don't have to.
Yeah. Nick Spencer's over there as well, right? I heard Nick Spencer's over there current writer for Amazing Spider-Man. And it also went on to say that, part of the reason why Tynan decided to do that is he didn't want to ask publishers for permission. This way he can do what he wants. I think that's more directly towards DC when you brought the debate, other creator-owned. I'm sure other creator-owned would give him that freedom to do that. But he turned down a 3-year contract extension from DC. He was like, no, I want to do my own thing with the Tiny Onion Studios. And they're saying that, Substack might be digital, but they're planning on digital platforms and other digital platforms and possible print, which you saw from that exclusive deal. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I honestly think this is about the digital push more than anything. Because in Asia, the comic book industry, a lot of it is digital now, and a lot of creators are getting a lot more money than ever. And a lot of the Netflix shows that are coming out of Korea are actually based on these web comics that are read on the phone. They're formatted for the phone, like so each panel fits the phone, and you scroll, infinite scroll or whatever. And I think these creators are thinking about the future ultimately, like a sustainable future and how to build a larger audience. So like I wish digital comics were $2, $1 to $2 less than print comics, but they seem to be the same price as print. So I'm never gonna get a digital comic like ever, right? But if it was significantly less money, then it's worth it. And if you can sell 1 million copies digitally, that's ultimately more sustainable than selling 20,000 physical copies or whatever. So I think that's what this play is about. It's about the future and really figuring out sustainability, because I don't know, the way the industry is today, I don't understand it. Like, I study other industries and I don't really see how it's not growing as much as it needs to, in my opinion, for it to sustain. And this is kind of, I don't know, they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, especially what you brought up about the phones. I mean, a lot of people talk about the phones and all types of media, like why video is going to be big, why to get into YouTube, why to do this, because a lot of people, it's phones and create small digestible content. I will also say, Game of Thrones quote, right? What is dead will never die. I think there'll always be print media, but I do think digital is getting a push. And I'm anxious to see how this goes. I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to go jump on Substack. It doesn't entice me enough to go do that. I'm glad Andy did it, and he also said that he's also doing it for those print exclusives. But I do read more comics on my iPad now than I used to, and it's usually from Hoopla. I don't have Comixology or the Marvel or the DC Universe app, but I use Hoopla a lot because you can check out trade paperbacks and omnibus and things like that. But people chiming in the chat. I want to welcome Desired Comics, Mitch Joel, Big E. Big E's got zero interest in digital comics, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that. I just tend to like to consume on the digital platform when I can, especially those larger chunks. And then I end up going to buy the trade or whatever anyways and reading it in book media out on the deck, smoking a cigar. And then, of course, I buy the floppies to not read.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah,
Tony, what do you think?
I think most things like this, it always comes down to money for a couple different reasons. The creator owned obviously is the way for creators to make real money on their work. I was just reading an article that talked about Ed Brubaker. He was referring to how he had created Winter Soldier, and the common practice with Marvel and DC, if one of these properties gets made into if one of these characters blows up, they might get like a $5,000 bonus. If they've got a really good agent, they might get their name squeezed in there as an executive producer, maybe with a little salary attached to that. But for the most part, unless you're really powerful, that's not happening. So their creations are being used to make billions of dollars, and they're making, probably a good living, but in comparison, not much. Whereas you have somebody like Brian K. Vaughan, who signs, from what I understood, was an 8-figure deal with Legendary a few years ago. For 5 or 6 of his projects. So, and the reality of the whole industry right now, this is comics. We love comics for the paper. We've been collecting since we were kids, many of us, but they really are storyboards for other media. There's Boom Studios. It's not Boom Comics. Most publishers, they're funding comics not because they make a lot of money at comics, but because they got a good chance of selling it to Netflix or whoever. And if they don't need print for that, really. Yeah. If there's some big names on digital, they can sign some digital deals to as options. So that kind of hurts us. We might miss out, like Andy was saying, on a lot of the print. We're used to multiple copies or multiple variants and the collectability of it, but it'll be good for the creators.
You bring up a good point, especially with comics, and I just had that conversation with Mark Guggenheim, who, he's been everywhere, right? He basically created Arrow, created the Arrowverse, but he's also written comics. And I asked him, I was like, do you think, what's your thought on the media market, movie media market, and comics separately and together? And one of the points that he brought up was, he's like, I like comics because a lot of times they introduce new IP that can become something later. He's like, but in that same thought, you always got to create a comic with the comic in mind. Don't create a comic book thinking, oh, this is a movie, this is a TV show. He's like, you always got to think of the comic first. And if it becomes more than that, that's great, and you can adapt it from there. But there's some great points in that interview, and super fun guy to talk to. But McClay, you're just not in on this at all, huh?
Here's my
you got
problem.
a free 6-month subscription. Do you take it?
No, because I won't. I'll be honest. I'm just like Big E. I don't have any interest in digital comics. I'll read them. I read digital comics like when I do it for the show or look, doing in some research or something, but I don't do it for fun. And I'll be honest, I like the collectability of comics also. I'm 50% love the stories and the characters, and 50% love the collectability factor. So that's why I love comics. But I will say that if it somehow does turn into, you know, like a Kickstarter style program where you can get floppies or trades, something that gives you that collectability, like you were saying, Andy, I'm cool with it. I just don't think I'm gonna take part super heavy in it. That could change though. I mean, that could totally change, but I just don't think I'm gonna take part super heavy.
I get that. I mean, I'll be honest, if it wasn't for those exclusives, I would have just done the free one for the newsletter. That was it.
I mean, if you look at Scoot, Scouts Child Imprint, there a lot of times they're printing only issue 1 and then a trade immediately after and I talked to a lot of comic book shop owners and they're just like, yeah, people just don't buy issue 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they're left with all this extra stock of books that they can't sell because everyone wants that issue 1 or whatever. But yeah, if you did have some sort of limited print on demand situation for people that wanted the vinyl, okay, right? So you have the digital release, but then you get the hardcore people getting the vinyl, let's say. That because
the Mondo version.
Yeah, even though we might have zero interest in digital comics, there's a bunch of people with zero interest in print comics, and that's who I think they're trying to get right now, really. I mean, because do we even have 1 million active readers in the print industry like right now? Like, do we? Like, honestly, like I don't know, and that's important, I think, for growth in the long term. Short term, whatever, right? People might not like, but we have to start making moves for the long term. Otherwise, like, we're gonna head into some troubled waters as we age out and we age up, and there's no one there to replace us in a way.
I think you've made the biggest point, especially for digital comics. You need to make digital comics that benefit for you to go over and read digital. When they're the same price, then there's not much difference.
Doesn't make sense.
And I also found that, I mean, that's the same. I think the same for video games. Why am I paying the same price to download digital when it's not costing the physical goods price and all of that? But it's a great discussion, and I'm anxious to follow this and then touch back on this on a later show to see how it's going, if it's grown, what other creators might jump over to it.
That's the biggest thing to me, is the amount of creators that are jumping over so quickly. I mean, it seems like every day we hear 1 or 2 new creators. Hickman jumped over. Yep. All these amazing creators are jumping at the fact to basically be their own boss ultimately.
Scotty Young, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Tynan's a big name to have right now.
The New York Times just did a big feature on this, which is like the most press comics has gotten in a long time, to be honest. And
yeah, that's a good point. Don't make good points, Mitch. I like being angry.
See, I won't turn down the convenience of digital by any means. I still buy all of my physical copies. I'll read digital for the convenience on occasion. It doesn't feel the same though. But if I'm in a time crunch and I need to read something for a show or want to read something with friends and something, more often than not, I find myself going digital for the convenience of being able to get to it and get through it faster. Yeah. But like I said, if it wasn't for those exclusive variants, I would have taken the free subscription for the Empire of the Tiny Onion just to keep the newsletter and keep up with what's going on there, because I feel a little wary, a little untrustworthy of new things. And it's because the older I get, the more I stay in my lane and I get set in my ways. So maybe this was the right decision for me, but we'll see. At least we can come back to it like you're saying.
Yeah, I think just like you, though, Andy, digital comics are gaining more and more acceptance all the time. When Marvel Now came out, I was living overseas, so that's the only option I had if I wanted to read new comics, was to just go digital. But I do know a lot of collectors here, people who don't even want to sell their books as unread, put that in the title of the auction. They'll buy their floppies, but they'll read it. Anything they want to read, they'll read on digital. So it's
more importantly, who's going to write Batman next?
Yeah, great question. That is a big question. I was really worried, to be honest, about the other titles too.
Tom Taylor.
Oh, Oh, I
Tom
was
Taylor
worried.
does have a big DC announcement that's imminent, supposedly. So
Ooh.
who knows?
That would be great.
I'm excited to see Dark Ages when it comes out. I'm not a big Marvel event person, but I want to read Dark Ages.
I'm an Apocalypse guy, so I'll read it.
Either way, moving on to the next topic. Tony, you've been
Yes,
following
yes.
this for a long time. You're a big Neil Gaiman Sandman fan. So what do you got for us?
This one's for McClay and myself, I think. There was news this week that Sandman, the season 1, wrapped filming. If I understand correctly, season 1 covers the first 2 arcs, the first 2 graphic novels. So I think up to issue 17 or so, somewhere in there. So we'll get into the, we've seen lots of casting news. We've seen a few shots of some set dressing, and that's about it. Comics, the speculation side of things, it heated up about a year ago and has kind of stayed pretty even keel since then. I think there's some, I wouldn't say backlash, but some of the casting choices have left people kind of scratching their heads a little bit. But McClay, I know you're a huge Sandman fan as well. What are your thoughts with the upcoming show? Are you excited? Are you nervous?
I am super excited. I at this point, maybe if it was me 2 years ago, I would be a little bit nervous. But after my past couple mistakes of judging a book by its cover, I won't do that anymore. When it comes to casting, I'll let it ride until I see the finished product. And once we start seeing like post-production stuff on this, then I'm going to be super excited. Right now, I'm just kind of biding my time, just waiting, looking for little bits and pieces here and there. But I tell you what I am doing. I'm definitely pulling out all my Sandman number 1s, Sandman 8s, 19s, pulling them all out and starting to look at them. Okay, is this grade worthy? Do I want to sell this on Whatnot? Do I want to sell this on eBay? All that stuff. I'm looking at those. I started looking at them the other day.
Yeah.
How close is this to the Sandman, the audio?
Well, if they're following the first and second story arcs, like Tony said, it's got to be pretty similar, right?
Yeah, I would imagine, the audio book obviously is almost word for word. I mean, if not more so, because they had all the sound effects and everything. To squeeze two graphic novels into one season, and I'm not even sure how many episodes the season is. I would guess 8 to 10 maybe.
I would hope 8 to 10. I would think Netflix learned a lesson with some of those MCU seasons that went for like 12 or 13 and just kind of 2 episodes too long.
Right.
Even if some were like an hour and 10, an hour 15, if they did like, season 6 Game of Thrones style.
Yeah. So I think there will be some modification. I think that's inevitable, but I think they're going to hit all the major story beats. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Dan, are you where are you in the world of Neil Gaiman?
I'm a huge Sandman fan, huge Gaiman fan, and it's scary because this is arguably the greatest comic book series of all time. Is it going to be the greatest TV series of all time? It's such a high bar.
Apparently, you haven't read Muppet Babies.
Oh yeah, well, I love that too. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm also scared. I mean, I watched Good Omens, and I was like, okay, it's a little, I don't know, it didn't feel right. It's not the worst show, but Gaiman is really hard to adapt, and yeah, we'll see. Those moments, like, will they capture that?
A lot of those things often come down to how much creative control they have also, right? And how much gets switched up in the executive room and changed and flipped around. I mean, Warner Brothers is a big proponent of doing that. So, hopefully with this, and then you get the opposite where, Zack Snyder's Watchmen, great movie, but it also sometimes it's almost panel for panel to where,
there's no excitement. There's no new. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan,
Did you did you see the show, Watchmen show?
I haven't watched it yet.
Excellent.
They take a lot of risks, you know, and that's like what they need to do. Like, they just need to push. They need to show that comic book properties can be something else, and that's sort of what Sandman's about, you know. Will they translate that in TV? I mean, I hope so, you know, but I'm really
Dan,
scared.
I agree with you on that completely, because I hope it's great, but it feels like, to me, it feels like there's a lot of pressure on this show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've had great adult comics get adapted. Preacher, Watchmen. I mean, quite a few of them by now. The Boys.
Wasn't J. Gordon Levitt trying to get this produced a while ago?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, him supposedly him and Neil Gaiman didn't see eye to eye on, you know, how you talked about what you were just saying earlier, how, you know, they want creative control. Like, you know, Gaiman wants creative control. This is his baby. He wants it to, quote unquote, feel like Sandman. And I was just reading a little bit about that. Him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt just didn't seem to see eye to eye on the final product. And Gordon-Levitt was supposed to star and direct in it. So, and it was a movie, not a series. So,
and that was when his star was really shining.
Yeah.
I just don't want to hear a lot of harpsichord in the background. Then I'm gonna be really worried. Too much harpsichord.
Yeah. My biggest hope for the show is that it can do what the comic did. And that's, you know, there were Vertigo titles, there were adult titles before Sandman came along, but Sandman really opened up that the comic world to a wider audience. I mean, two out of every three emo kids in the 90s got some sort of Sandman tattoo. You know, it became a cultural, almost like a pop culture figure. It got a lot more penetration than like Watchmen or a lot of other things. And I'm just hoping that it can do the same thing, you know, that it can be a really big hit, because it's a really, really great story. And Comic Man Andy, I know you guys did a deep dive into a lot of the Sandman. I know you were kind of a late comer. What's your thoughts on the upcoming?
I'm extremely excited, but I'm just as equally nervous. We did a deep dive, Downright Nerdy podcast, myself, and Bored and Annoyed podcast. We sat down and we read it. I absolutely love the first couple of story arcs. I cannot wait for this to hit the show, but some things aren't quite adding up for me that make me really nervous about this. Because when we talk about buying books, like Brian's looking at his books and evaluating the market, we talk about buying in the dip. There has not been a dip between announcements for this, so the hype has been building. The hype is building, and it's getting higher. And if they don't deliver, if this doesn't deliver in a fashion that the fans are looking for, I feel it's going to... I'm worried. I'm a little bit worried about that, because I'm extremely excited for the show. I missed the boat on buying all the books. I might have to look for another dip later. I don't know, but you guys are right. This is arguably one of the greatest comic book stories out there, in the top 5, if not top 3.
Yeah. There's one big variable in that article that I see, and executive producing with David S. Goyer. Mm-hmm. David S. Goyer is also, I don't know if he wrote any of these episodes, but he's written some movies that have been really, really great, and then he's written some movies that kind of landed flat. Like, wasn't he writing the Snyder Superman Batman?
Superman, yeah.
Or it was either Superman or Superman
and
Batman.
Then they dropped him out.
Yeah.
And the unreleased Blade Trinity that no one ever saw, that doesn't exist. That he didn't he direct that, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just two things. I mean, he's done a lot of great work too. It's just be interesting to see.
Well,
now, let's say this. I am honestly not the biggest Sandman Neil Gaiman fan. I'm probably the noob in here. So let's say other people like me. What would you tell someone like, hey, this show's coming, or this comic book? Sell it. Like, what would be your elevator pitch for this series and show that's coming?
I'd first ask if you were into if the fantasy genre is something you're into. Yeah, because if you're not, it's like, Well, not much I can say. If you're not somewhat into the fantasy genre and can sit back and just enjoy something, which for me is a lot of times is hard to do, I'll admit it. But if you're not into that fantasy genre and, love the I think people that are kind of like into mythology and religion and researching that type of stuff really dig Sandman and kind of end up flocking to it a little bit. So if you're not into that type of stuff,
Dubba got me with Supernatural.
there you go. There you go. Yeah.
If you got Sam and Dean Winchester in there, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, I think if you're into fantasy, mythology, supernatural, it's a game changer. Especially if you've never been into it.
Got momentum when I left comics, and then coming back into comics, it's always like, yeah, I'll get around to that, and I just never read it.
Yeah. I'll suggest this. If you ever get it, if you fall in love with Sandman, and you ever get a chance to go check out the Absolute editions, freaking fantastic. The Absolute editions of Sandman are like the pinnacle of, hardcover, absolute, thick bound, dope looking presentation, beautiful pages, everything about the Sandman Absolute Edition are a hit.
Yep.
Right now, though, DC is publishing the new deluxe edition, right? So only volume 2 came out of it, and they're thick as well. They're sort of like the Absolute editions, but they're way cheaper. And book 3 is coming out this month, and I've actually been buying those too because book 1 it collects like 1 through 15 or something, and I've been buying multiple copies of that and giving it out to friends and family just to be like, yo, like, you think you know comics?
Because I don't have any desire to collect it, but I want to read it.
Oh yeah, this new deluxe edition is even more accessible, and I would tell people like Sandman's about the personification of dreams and how it's in everyday interactions with regular people all over the world, but how dreams affect our imaginations and the way we see reality, and how these people get affected by this person that might be like the god of dreams who has weird siblings like desire, destiny, and despair, and they're all part of these like elemental gods that existed with us since the beginning of time, and it's just about their interactions with us and how they exist with us together in like, that's what these stories are. And it's like stories about everyone. It's not about these characters actually in particular. They're more a framing device for stories about life in general.
Is it available on Amazon?
Oh yeah. You know what it feels like to me, and this is gonna sound weird, but it just feels super like British, like old school British poems and stories that were told, and like
you're talking Canterbury Tales here.
Yeah, like that type of shit. No, honestly, like old school stuff that has been handed down through word of mouth and Gaelic and
I do like stuff like that.
Yeah, it totally feels like that. It totally that, and maybe because I just Neil Gaiman is British and that's how I see it, but it's got that feel to it.
Yeah, and there are characters. I mean, obviously there's characters and plots that will follow, but it's also kind of an anthology. I mean, there's just, like Dan was saying, there's just other stories that are kind of set maybe with these characters as side pieces, but it's in this world. But yeah, it ranges. I mean, there's comedy, there's horror, there's some dark horror.
Oh yeah,
it's. So you think it's going to be mature? You think, or is it PG-13?
I hope it's mature.
Yeah, with Netflix, I think they have to. Yeah. Otherwise, like, what's the like? That's like what held back Preacher was that it was on AMC, and you're like, oh, damn it. I want to see the dildos, like.
that brings us up to the next topic. Speaking of mature R-rated, Dan, Suicide Squad opened this weekend, right? This past weekend?
Yes, Suicide Squad opened to a $26.5 million weekend, and best R-rating opening for the pandemic, but worst for not just this franchise, but many of the DCEU and MCU films. It was frankly somewhat pitiful. It was somewhat a disaster, but it was predicted. And there's a lot of theories about why this is, whether it's because this is already a failed franchise, that's what this Deadline article is about. It's speculating that because it's a failed franchise to begin with, the branding wasn't good, and that kept people away. But then there's also the day and date release, strategy that the media companies are doing. We are right now in the Wild West in terms of how media is going to be consumed and where it's going, and this is just one of those stories in this maelstrom of things that are coming.
Not to instantly jump to another story, but it kind of goes into what you were just talking about. Did you see though that Warner Brothers just struck a deal with AMC theaters where they're going to have an exclusive shortened release window, but in 2022 they're going back to theater only. It's going to be like a 44-day release. I don't know if they're going to go to HBO Max after that for a window, but they just struck that deal as well. But
I think they've made this is a disaster sort of. I mean, I think all the companies are kind of oversaturating the market. So like you don't
no
feel
one's
that
suing anyone though yet.
No,
Yet.
but you don't have that urgency to go to the theater anymore. Like that urgency, they
I
lost
did.
a lot of
I
it.
had to see this in the theater.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean that's good, but I think that's the problem. They like
So
because
$10 of that 26.5 is mine.
How much
Yeah.
did it make? How much has it made so far? Not just over the weekend, and how much has the film cost? Because we were
It's
talking
like-
about this the other night on Flipside, and there were some disparities. People were saying one thing in the chat, and other people were saying other things.
well, the thing is like 180 million production budget, so marketing is probably around the same. So this is like 400 million, kind of almost basically, and just to break even, it's got to make like 400 million, kind of. I'm pretty sure.
And they're not going to get anywhere near that.
The first
Not
one
even.
had the first Suicide Squad, which was I'm not saying David Ayer made a worse movie, but the movie that was put in theaters was much worse than the one I saw this past weekend. Its global box office was 746, almost 747 million global.
But
Yeah.
that's because it was exciting. We were like, "Oh, what is this? What is this thing?" Everyone's like, "Oh, let's go see what this is." I don't know if we're getting as much of that excitement anymore. I feel like, to be honest, right now, as far as history goes, Endgame is the peak. We haven't seen anything rise to that level since. So, as of now, that's the peak. And are we going to hit that peak again? I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
And didn't
I think
Liefeld just come out and say something like DC's just too far behind? They should just give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's kind of hard for us observers to gauge the profitability anymore, though, because of the streaming side of it. I mean, I'm sure there was a bump in subscriptions before a lot of these major releases. Disney sells it on their streaming for whatever it is, 20, 25.
30.
We don't
Yeah.
see those. Yeah, we don't see those numbers. We don't see how many subscribers, HBO Max had this month compared to 2 months ago. And if they do get a subscriber, if somebody logs on and pays for one movie, most of them are going to stick around and pay for a whole year. I think that profitability is going to be factored a lot differently going forward.
A lot of profitability comes from merchandising as well. And the thing is, they know in Hollywood or whatever that the premiere release in theaters or whatever is actually such a major cultural touchstone that it boosts the merchandising selling. Like merchandising value rises from theater releases. And when you just stream things, they come and they go. And like you don't remember what came out a month ago. Like there's so much that they don't become these cultural moments anymore. I don't know. You guys all saw the movie?
Yes,
I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I like.
I almost
it.
wished
thought
it was a
great.
TV. I almost wished it was a TV series. Actually, I thought there was like enough material.
Yeah. Well, you're getting a TV series, right? Or is Peacemaker going to be a series or a movie? I forget.
Series.
Yeah.
Serious. Yeah.
But I got exactly what I was hoping to get out of it. It had James Gunn's signature all over it. A lot of people could
Yeah.
say it's a DC Guardians of the Galaxy type movie. You know, instead of Groot, you got Stallone playing King Shark, who was freaking awesome. The characters were great in it. I was entertained. I liked the story. Yeah, there was some. I could go in there and say, "Hey, it's winning best screenplay or by any means," but the story. I love seeing Starro. I mean,
Yeah.
Idris Elba, and the characters played well with each other. And I think whoever played Polka Dot's mom should win an Oscar. She was awesome in there. By the way, if you haven't watched the movie, there is. I'm just gonna say spoiler alert because we might get into something, but
Yeah.
Exactly what I want to see. I went and saw it in the theater. I was glad I did. I ended up watching it at home on HBO Max next day with my kids. I didn't feel as guilty not taking my kids this time because hey, they can. I went Thursday. They can watch it tomorrow on TV. Let's just go because whenever I take my kids, tickets will be like $150 at the concession stand with. Can I get nachos? Can I have popcorn? Can I have candy? And especially if the wife isn't with me to smuggle candy in her bag. You're paying $6 for some Skittles that's got like 3 Skittles in it.
Yeah.
Wait, do you smuggle with your children to the theater?
I don't. I
Oh.
usually, and then it's
Have
like
the wife do it?
No, one thing I do is they get ices and then they refill the cups with soda, which you're not supposed to do that. So yes, I'm guilty of doing that. But everything else is paid for, and it's like, golly, there goes concessions get you. Even with my AMC Stubs card.
Yeah.
I almost broke down and went to see it in the movie theater because I'm gonna go watch every movie that I can in the movie theater from here on out. I feel safe and comfortable to do that here where I'm at in Michigan. I didn't do it due to time and convenience, and I ended up watching it on HBO Max. And I'm actually glad I did watch it on HBO Max because to me, it was like Marvel got confused about what it would normally do and then tried to do a spin-off movie of The Boys. Like they bought it and it was like toned down. It was like a confused Marvel movie that they tried to parody like Boys with characters that I didn't really know. So it was fun. I had a good time, but I'm glad I didn't go spend the $20, $30, $40, $50 at the theater to see it. I'll watch it again. And I'll give that movie a ton of credit and James Gunn a ton of credit because you know that I am now about to sit down and watch the other movies before that I didn't see.
You gotta give his brother a ton of credit too for Weasel and Calendar Man.
Yeah.
He's like the next Andy Serkis when it comes to mocap, man.
Yeah. Didn't he play two parts?
I think
yeah,
so.
he was Weasel and then he was the Calendar Man, right?
I loved Weasel, man.
He's still alive.
It's so cringeworthy.
That's why I thought it was so great. Yeah, him licking the glass.
And Michael Rooker. Yeah. And then I guess a lot of people didn't pick up on it because James Gunn mentioned it, but Mantis, what's her name? She had the actress had a cameo in Suicide Squad, and he was like, I thought people would instantly pick up on it. No one brought it up.
Yeah, she was the dancer, Palm.
Yeah.
Clement
and then Ratcatcher. There was a lot of cameos. Michael Rooker was great as Savant.
I thought Michael Rooker was going to be one of the characters that lasted. I was like, that blew me away. So
yeah, I mean, he lasted until the end, at least.
Well, yeah. His character was a little confusing.
It was so funny watching him run away.
Because it was such a build up to him, you know, and then it like doesn't pay off. And I was like, whoa.
Viola Davis is like the best Amanda Waller, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I think if DC was smart, if they really did want to pull off a cohesive DCEU, you know, pay James Gunn.
Yeah,
he could be the little baby Feige over there. He could be the
he's
one.
He's working on Peacekeeper, right? And then there's rumor that he's coming back because I guess right now he's done with Marvel after Guardians 3. And there's also he was teasing, you know, press is press, and then they'll put in headlines out, but they've also teasing that, hey, that would be a good idea, Justice League versus Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
his superhero movies are fun to watch, you know, and that's what they should be.
Yeah, they always have great soundtracks. It was just enjoyable.
DC has been doing the non-unified approach though. Like Joker, right, costs like 20 million and or 50 million or something, and made 500 million. So, and that was a huge, like, the profit was huge on that, and that was like, give them total freedom, let them play, see what they do. And I think that's kind of like why the Batman is the way it is. They're like trying to repeat what happened with the Joker by creating these like isolated universes, Elseworlds. Basically, they're Elseworldsing the crap out of their EU.
Yeah.
Which,
DC did that in the comics too, really.
and if anything, it does differentiate them from Marvel. Like when they try to be Marvel, it just doesn't really. It's Justice League. And
they did have in the theater. They had a trailer for the Batman before the movie, and it started off, and I was still kind of like, Pattinson is Batman, and then they introduced him where he just basically beats the shit out of a guy. I was like, okay, I could settle into this. But,
yeah. What do you do with if you have the Elseworlds approach though? You know, if you get a perfect casting like you have for Margot Robbie and for Harley. You know, what do you do with her?
Well, I mean,
she's great. She's great as Harley, man.
Yeah.
They did that Harley Quinn Birds of Prey film, you know, and that didn't work. And they tried to interfere too much with that because I know Kathy Yan, she talked to the director. She talked about how she was sort of felt DC like, you know, mess with it or whatever.
You hear that a lot with DC movies where Warner Brothers execs kind of get in the way.
But now with Nolan, right? They didn't do that when
Nolan, and evidently James Gunn had more liberties too, and you can kind of see it play out. I will tell you, this is probably hands down my favorite John Cena movie so far.
Oh yeah, by far.
It was so perfect. If this whole island was covered with
Yeah. Some of his stuff was laugh out loud funny, and I never expected that out of John Cena. He usually drives me crazy in movies. Like, what is this guy even here for? He's terrible. But there were some moments with laugh out loud.
I'm completely with you, Brian. I know he's a super popular action guy now, but this is the first movie that I've like appreciated him in.
Yeah. Which is
I
good
thought
to
he
see
was,
because
yeah.
The Rock wasn't the best when he first came out in some of those movies as well. So. And look what James Gunn has done for Bautista.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Bautista's like really doing great. His work he's like really becoming a great actor actually.
He is. Yeah.
I've actually
impressed.
caught on to the whole reading glasses gig that he has for all of his characters. He's always got reading glasses on for every character. That's his thing.
Doesn't need it for Drax though, because he's invisible.
Yeah, right. Except for that. But I'm actually glad you guys brought up Margot Robbie because I feel like she saved the movie for me, to be honest with you. She added a lot of what I look for in caring for a character, and just crazy enough with now not being over the top showboating, stage, spotlighty. I mean, I think that was very well done.
Made up for Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Can I say though, I told you this before, Brian. I was not happy that we didn't see a little jar. They could all they had to do in the post-credit scene was somebody grab one of the little tiny starfish and put it in a jar and seal it up. Don't have to explain what it is. Would have been the easiest Easter egg.
Yeah, and then the end credit scene was kind of cool because. Not to give it away, but when I was watching just the movie, I was like, well, that tells me more about what the series is going to be about, I guess.
Yeah.
Coming forward, but and there's storylines floating out there that another person that seemed to have died in the movie might not be dead.
Right. So
flag.
DC is not known for adding tidbits at the end, are they?
No, a lot of times they don't. Because
So
I think that one time they were too scared of looking like Marvel, so they tried to go like the opposite way to not look like Marvel, and I think it didn't do them any favors. Like they didn't want to build the universe; they just wanted to put the universe first and then do standalone movies. Stuff that seemed to have worked for Marvel. They went the opposite way. Didn't want to do end credit scenes, and they're starting to add some of that in.
I think we're at a stage right now where fans don't care if it's Marvel or DC or Warner Brothers or some other company.
Think of
That
how many
little-
people go and see
that
it and they just want to see a comic book movie. They don't even know the
Well,
difference.
that little hook at the end. I don't care who's making the movie. If I enjoyed the movie, that little hook at the end sells me going forward. I mean, I don't care if who's trying to look like who. That really, like, hook, line, and sinker gets me ramped up for the next one. It gets me excited because they have my attention. Use it right now, because 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now, when that trailer drops, I'm going to get excited again because I remember being there when I saw that 30-second clip at the end. I'm like, yes, I was excited then. It's time to get excited now. Let's go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would honestly, it's one of those movies that, even though it's on HBO Max, if I had the time, I would go see it in the theater again, even if it's like Saturday matinee type thing where it's $4 ticket, just still not taking the kids for those
Yeah.
concessions.
You know, and speculation wise, I know box office, it didn't do as well as the first movie, but if you look at comics that are bought and sold, it's had a lot more effect than that first movie. King Shark has become a legitimate speculation. That's a legitimate key now. Bloodsport.
Yeah, he's getting like his own Suicide Squad series too. And I will tell you one thing that DC did. I wish they would still do it in the movie, but we've talked about it on this channel before, especially when Jack was on here, where DC has been putting out emails and marketing saying, hey, if you liked Harley, if you liked King Shark, check out these. And they've even created character best of type that has great story arcs about that character that you can go and buy. I still wish they would put that in the movies, whether it's during the credits on the sides, just saying, hey, if you like this character, check out these books. I think they're missing on a huge marketing opportunity.
Oh yeah. They're most, to me, the most important thing that DC and Marvel has is their back catalog. All those stories that they aren't, you're 100% right, Brian. Great freaking point. They're not capitalizing on that huge back catalog.
Or they could even, the future episodes, I mean, not episodes, but future issues.
Yeah.
Or make sure you check out Harley and whatever is coming up. But and it'll tie that fandom over into bringing more comic book readers in.
I've heard a lot of LCS owners be like furious about this, livid that the companies don't do any sort of marketing at all, especially like when it's like the perfect time to do it.
I've seen some LCSs set up in a theater for some of those movie premieres to sell books. I also know that I think they were giving out a copy of a Suicide Squad book for some of these movies. The AMC I went to, they didn't give us anything, but I heard people saying, hey, did you get the free comic book? I didn't even realize they were giving one out.
But this tells you who's in power, though. Like, the movies are more powerful than the comics. Like, this shows you, like, comics have to work within the dictates of the film industry now, more than the film industry has to work within the dictates of the comic industry. So, and just showing, like, they care so little about comics that they don't even market when they can. It's so easy. Yeah. And that's where all their IP comes from, but they just don't care.
Well, they have a hard enough time giving comic creators credit in the credits half the time, especially with some of those DC books. And I think Tony mentioned it earlier. There was an article today where a lot of those comic creators, they get like, hey, here's $5,000. We used your character in this movie. Thanks. Have a nice day. And they're making billions in the box office. Well, 26 million right now for your Suicide Squad, but
yeah,
jab.
Yeah. Speaking of comic collections, we kind of teased this discussion last week, and Alberto, you want to take this one?
Okay, hold on. Yes, I will take this with a couple of caveats, a couple of questions here. If I duct tape all of my Saga number ones together, it still counts as one, correct?
Without bagging boards, if you duct tape them without
bagging boards, raw.
Yeah. It's like the nacho theory Tony was saying,
that
right?
RRP in the background and add that to it too.
It's like the nacho theory, like Tony was saying. When you pull one chip, the rest of them are stuck together. It's still one nacho.
Yeah, just duct tape the back cover of the last issue, the front cover of the first issue together into like one book that we can laugh at, and that will count.
Wow. You want to talk about probably one of the most difficult questions to answer for, I feel like, a lot of comic book collectors out there. If they're as diverse as I feel like most comic book collectors are, this is not an easy question to answer. A lot of people will go back to their first experiences or a lot of their firsts or category of firsts with the bag that they'll dig into, so to speak, from that aspect. Pretty much anybody watching this that knows me is gonna say I'm gonna pull a Saga book. I'm here to say that I'm not gonna pull a Saga book. If I'm only keeping one book in my collection, I know, Tony, right? If I'm only keeping one comic book in my collection, I'm going to go into my bag of firsts, and I'm going to say it's going to be the first comic book that I ever purchased as a kid, the first one off the spinner rack that I ever read. And it's not this exact copy, but it is the only copy that I would never let go of. Punisher War Journal #1, 9.9, one of 3 in the world.
Very cool.
That you almost gave up on an auction. Or
Nope, not this one. Not this one. Warzone, not this one.
Oh yeah, okay.
So many moons ago, when people didn't care about 9.9s and they didn't care about Punisher and they didn't care about the side series besides the major keys, this 9.9 could be had for under $300 online. It is a ghost. There's only 3 in the world. We'll never see another 9.9 again with this paper quality from 1988, 1980. Yeah, it's 88. I will never give up this slab ever for anything. And whatever dream number people think of what this is going to cost right now, like the last sale, let's say whatever it is, and people double that and say, well, he'll sell it for 10 grand or 20 grand. Nope. You could offer me $500,000 and I wouldn't let go of this book. I'd hold on to this.
Here's one for you, Alberto. Shot out of the cannon. You got to marry one, kill one. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna raise the ante here. That's your one comic book that you could keep out of your whole collection. But Punisher Saga, one's got to go. We'll let you go. We won't put
That
you on
can't
the
happen in this universe. That's like saying Marvel DC, one's got to go. It can't happen. It's yin and yang. They exist with each other.
That's like who would win in a fight, Superman and Mighty Mouse? Mighty Mouse is a cartoon. Superman's a real guy.
Oh my!
That's from Stand By Me, by the way. But McClay, one book, only one book. Everything else has got to go. What one book are you keeping?
All right, guys. So it's probably my most valuable book, but that's not why I chose it. I chose it based on kind of what Andy chose his on, not necessarily like sentimental value, a little bit of sentimental value, but mostly rarity. One of the rarest books in comics that not a lot of people know about. The people that do know, this causes them to kind of take a real deep breath when they see it. There's only 31 known graded copies, none higher than an 8.5, and that is Punisher 12.
I'm salivating.
Ooh.
Yeah, so
And it's been swiped. That cover's been swiped so many times.
yeah, this right here is my favorite cover probably of all time.
Is that one from that collection that your book? Didn't you have a buddy that had you go through a whole bunch of pre-code horror?
Yeah, so I had a buddy, a good friend. He became my good friend through this collection. I
guess so. I'm just kidding.
Well, I wasn't good friends with him before it, and he came into a collection and said, "I need help with it." And instead of doing what some people could have done and just totally decimated it and said, well, these ones are worth money and these ones I'll buy from you, I was really honest with them. And I said, these are the ones that are retirement type books, first Loki, you name the Golden Age book, it was probably there. Silver Age book, it was probably there. And he had it all. And he had a ton of pre-code horror. He had a ton of Golden Age goodness, first Batmobile, stuff like that. I mean, just absolutely bonkers stuff. And I told him that this was like a dream book for me. And he says, if you've helped me do this, it's yours. And I was like, it was one of the coolest things that anybody's ever done for me.
That's awesome.
my most cherished book. And here's the funny story. So it definitely was cherished, but at the beginning of last year, it was in my mind to sell it because this book could sell for a lot of money, and it was a time in where a lot of us are thinking, how can we stack some money? And thank God for my good friend Nico, who said, if you sell that book, I'm going to fly out there and smack you, because it's how rare it is. And I didn't know how rare it was at the time. I just knew, it was really coveted and how much of a great cover it was. So, yeah, absolutely my grab and go book, 100%.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is I'm not going next. I'm kidding. Tony,
Nico just like smacking people anyways. So
yeah.
You can hear Tony sliding through all the slabs in the background.
Yeah, no,
it's hard, man. Picking one book's hard.
This is a tough one. I'm trying to figure out this scenario. So what? Like the house is on fire, and instead of grabbing my kids, I grab one book. Is that where we are? I don't know.
The book worth more than your children. Which is the book?
Yeah.
I love comics, and I've been around comics and buying comics for a long time. But Andy, there's a price on every comic for me. If I can, if I'm gonna pay for my kids' college or buy a house, I might be selling pretty much any book. I think for the purpose of this argument, though, I'm gonna go with. So I'm from Minneapolis. I've started a Purple Rain homage collection. There aren't a lot. There's maybe 10 out there. But the gem of that collection is my Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, number 19, the IDW, the retailer.
That's a great book.
Incentive variant in 9.8. A year ago, there were 7 of these on the census, and now somebody created one more. So there's 8. I know the movie bombed. It is what it is. Snake Eyes isn't really going to go anywhere.
That's what the comic that movie could do whatever, and that comic still stands on its own.
Yeah, it's a dark spine on front and back. I just love that cover, and there's a lot of other ones out there now. But that being said, I probably would have a price on that. If that was the one I saved, I'd sell it for a mint and buy back some of my other comic collection maybe.
We talk about prices, but Mitch is right. Take $500,000 and buy the other 2, referring to what I had said earlier. And you're not wrong. There's marketplace. There's other things that you could do, but Tony, I'm with you. There's a price for every book, but I mean, it's like, what pushes you over that? You know what I mean?
I got you. I hear you.
McClay, did you see the comment in the chat?
Yeah, I did.
Would you slap it?
Here's the interesting thing. If you want to throw me up on it, I've never really graded this book. I've been so scared to cause any damage to it, but you guys can see it's got a little bit of damage on the spine. Let's see if we can
easy 9.8.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not terrible, but it has a little bit of damage on the spine, and then just a little. I mean, for the age of the book,
or any of that.
The colors, though, man, the colors are awesome.
Yeah,
you can see
the reds are awesome.
So the plan is, in all honesty, if 2 things happen, Baltimore and on-site grading, that book will be slabbed.
CBCS?
So, get out of here. Not a chance. And here's why.
PGX, baby.
I know the reputation when it comes to restoration and dealing with old school books that Matt Nelson has. Yeah. And being in the part of the pool that we're in, the comic influencer pool, I've asked Matt Nelson, personally, hey, I want to hand this book to you. I don't want to send this book off if I don't have to. I want to hand this book to you. and that's the plan. So we'll see if it happens.
That's exactly the type of book that I would consider driving down to Florida and paying walkthrough and walking in and be like, how much more do I need to offer to personally walk up to Matt, have this discussion, and do this right now today? That's the caliber of book that I would seriously consider doing a vacation from work for to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan.
So we'll see.
Well, I'm just showing this just real quick because it's a 1 in 4 that exists. It's not even that special, but for some reason it sold for $1,500 recently.
Nice.
And I found that it was like 1 in 4. So anyway, that's not the book. The book I'm picking is Ren and Stimpy issue 6.
Nice.
New stand.
Because I bought this when I was a kid, and that's why it's like one of the earliest comics I can remember buying. This and also this comic, Avengers Annual 22. These are not the originals that I bought, of course, but they're the ones I remember buying, and this one in particular because it's a lot more fun to read. This wasn't. I didn't really enjoy reading this again, but this is still good. It's Dan Slott's first time writing Spider-Man as well. This is a little known fact.
Wish it would have been his last.
Oh well, yeah. Well, there, shots fired, and but yeah, this is kind of a key. I think it's the first Powdered Toast Man in comics too.
Yep.
But I didn't know that when I was a kid. I was just like, Ren and Stimpy comics, Spider-Man's in the
There's
Ren
got to
and
be
Stimpy
farts in
comic.
this book.
Yeah, I need to get that, and that's why I have it, and yeah, I would let everything else burn to the ground because I'm not. Yeah, I just it's more about sentimental stuff for me. I'll sell it all. I'll sell it all tomorrow if I have to.
I almost went that same route because I have a Killing Joke, first wall book I ever bought.
Yeah.
And for like weeks, I would go up there to the baseball card store that sold comics, and the little white sticker and ink that said like $27 on it. And I kept wanting it, and at that day, it was lemonade stands, mowing lawns, and sadly, my grandfather passed away at the time, and each of us kids got $20, and that put me over the top. And I got it raw, held it in a Xerox box, not even. So it came bagged and boarded, or it wouldn't even been bagged and boarded, but it was in a Xerox box. Went to Marine Corps, all that other stuff. Came back, got back into comics. I was like, I'm gonna send it in. It came back a 9.6. I was happy with it. I was
nice.
This is so cool. But I'm not going that route. I'm going with this is probably my Grail book, and that's my Journey into Mystery. Get the glare off of it. 83, 4.5.
Beautiful.
I bought this with student loan money when I was taking my master's.
That's one way to earn an education.
Yeah, PayPal credit, and then I paid it off since then. But that's definitely probably my favorite book in my collection, my Grail. My favorite characters in comics is Thor and Green Lantern. So definitely one. And I was telling Andy before we started recording tonight that at the time I was like, hey, I'm a Thor fan, but I know what Wolverine's going for. And it was, do I buy that or a Hulk 181 9.2 for about the same price at the time? And I was glad I went with what I like to collect and got that first appearance of Thor.
So here's the lesson to all you comic collectors out there. If you're in college, borrow as much as you can.
Yeah, maximize that FAFSA. No, yeah, I still have like $4,000 on student loans, but I paid off the PayPal credit that I used.
How much was that JIM or $4,000?
It was like at the time it was like, I can't say, the wife's in the chat.
Oh,
$2.
$2 it is.
That's a
But I will
book,
say it's going for like 15 right now. 15,000.
$15. Yeah.
All hairs.
Yeah.
But that's our one book. But we also have books that came out today. But New Comic Book Day is known for tomorrow. So now it's time for us to give what's our pick for New Comic Book Day tomorrow. Tony, what are you getting?
I'm gonna stick with one book again this week.
It's a light week.
It is.
Yeah. Eve #4 is out, and I am just as high on that as I was a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I think it's just a matter of time till we hear about, some Hollywood player signing a deal to produce and some casting news. I think it's a great story. Great. Boom is putting out some great incentive covers. The variants are really cool. So that's my book.
Those Andolfo variants have been awesome.
There's a lot of Boom series that are great that kind of get, for lack of better words, lost in the wash with some of that more prominent series from them. El Beardo.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm glad Tony picked Eve because that was one I definitely wanted to hear get talked about today because I'm excited to read that.
You're getting the prequel Summers.
Oh no. Oh no, that just went downhill real fast. I'm glad Tony talked about Eve. I'm glad that's getting some spotlight because I think that's an amazing read. I'm gonna go with, because he picked that, I'm gonna go with Canto 3, Lionhearted #2. David and Drew are killing it with their creative team and their assistants that's helping out with that. And Canto just continues to, every time a book comes out, it's another progression, another level of excellence for them. And they just actually finished off their Canto 3 Lionhearted #1, their con exclusive of the never-ending story cover, and Lala Schulte herself AOK'd me a copy of that, and it is stellar. It is nostalgia wrapped up with one of the greatest stories going on right now. So Canto 3, Issue 2, Lionhearted is what I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
That 1 in 10 incentive is freaking fire, by the way.
Yep.
For Issue 2.
If it would stop giving me errors on the webpage.
Come back to it. We'll show it in a minute. McClay.
Couple books. First book is the Count Draco Knuckle Duster book. It picks up where Phantom Starkiller left off. Just a cool book to me. Love the characters and just everything about that series and Scout Comics and everything like that. But a lot of books that people aren't really talking about, including this category that I'm going to include, the book that I'm most looking forward to picking up this week that's coming out new this week is the Stray Dogs Free Comic Book Day variant, which a lot of people don't know about. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick one up. I'm praying to God somebody grabs one for me, but they're doing a special Comic Bug exclusive for anybody who lives around the Comic Bug shop in California. Stop by and pick me up one, and it is a homage to Jason Goes to Hell.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brian, are you getting that 4th print of the Phantom Starkiller, the glow-in-the-dark one?
I would love to get it. I think it's I love glow-in-the-dark anything, so right. I'm down for that. But there is also a Count Draco Knuckle Duster glow-in-the-dark for issue 1 also.
Cool.
And
I kind of got a couple, but like nothing premiering, right? So I want to see if Ordinary Gods 2 is, is it good? It's gonna. I liked issue 1, so I'm just like wondering. Like it's always about like, is it gonna stay good? You're always wondering. Same thing with Bunny Mask 3. Is it gonna continue? Is it going or whatever? And Mamo 2. I liked Mamo 1. No one's talking about Mamo. But I'm hoping Mamo 2 is. But a lot of 2s that you're hoping are strong. You always want a strong number 2. You don't want a weak number 2.
soft number 2.
Are you sure you want? I thought it was the other way around. I thought you want a strong number 1, not a weak number 1.
No, strong number 2.
First appearance.
No, I always thought you want that stream to be super, not weak, super strong.
Yeah.
Don't cross the streams, though. Don't never cross the streams. Yeah,
never cross them. Yeah.
I like how it took Andy's mind like half a second to get there.
I kind of got 2 also, and they're mostly just reader picks. I'm excited for that Batman '89 number 1.
Oh, right.
It kind of dives in between story arcs of that awesome Tim Burton movie that Michael Keaton's my Batman, so I love that universe right there. But there's another one, Black Box Comics. They do a lot of indie small publisher. They don't really take part in final art cutoffs, so I don't hear about them much as well. They have a book coming out tomorrow called Gen Hunter #1, and it's written by Jay Sandlin. Great guy. He's written some books for Mad Cave. Wrote probably one of the best. If you're a wrestling fan, he's probably written one of the best wrestling comics ever in Over the Ropes. And he also written Hellfighter Quinn. But Black Box Comics has Gen Hunter #1. Rogue Gen out there granting wishes to mortals and has to be stopped. Covers for it are fantastic.
Oh.
There's some great exclusive variants for this, as well as Black Box Comics. Their website has an exclusive. So they don't get talked about a lot, but they have some great stories out there. Psycho List, was another one. Militia was a great book, but
Psycho List had that stellar like black prism foil cover on the #1 too. Oh yeah.
So, and like I said, if you can't find it, if you're interested in it and can't find your LCS, definitely check out Black Box Comics website because they sell them on there as well, and they ship fairly well. You know, there's a lot of publishers. You're like, Archie, I'm looking at you. You go and buy books off their website, and it's just like, here you go. But either way, that's my pick. But Alberto, you know, when we get to the end, we only have one more thing. One more thing. We're going to go around. Each panelist is going to tell us one more thing, whether it's what they got coming up on their channel, Instagram, a recipe they found, whatever it may be. One more thing. Tony, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I am. I've talked about doing Whatnot before. I know Andy, I know a lot of us are kind of getting active on it. I am trying to settle in on the Thursday night commute home. So about 4:45, I'm going to try to be on every Thursday. I got an
Central,
inventory.
Eastern, Pacific?
4:45 Central. So a little bit later or earlier if you're on the coast. But it seems to be a good time. It's not as populated. And then I get the rest of the night to relax and have fun. So loading up my books right now.
Ooh.
I might have a late night show that same night, trying a little experiment on some not safe for work titles, just to see why not.
Boundless.
You can't sell them on eBay anymore. So
Boundless books.
Whatnot.
we'll give it a shot. So yeah, come check it out. Give me a follow on Whatnot. Follow on Instagram. That's what I got.
Awesome. Andy, Alberto.
Ooh.
El Como Beardo.
One more thing. All the way up in Grand Rapids, Michigan is the Grand Rapids Comic Book Convention this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I will be there Friday, milling around, digging through boxes, looking for some good deals, looking for some fun reads, looking to hang out. If anybody, I know the Comic Burrito from his YouTube channel should probably be there Friday and Saturday. There's a few other people might run into. But this Friday, Grand Rapids Comic Book Convention in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm going to be there.
McClay, what do you got going on?
I'm going to share my screen for this part. For what I got going on, I want to let everybody know about my other podcast. This is what I do every week with my best friend in the world, my brother from another mother, Keith Obit. We do a show called The Bogcast. It's Bogcast. You can find it on YouTube. Really crazy conversations, some not safe for kids banter, a lot of cannabis, a lot of fun, a lot of joking around, and I enjoyed a lot, and I hope for you guys to check it out and for you guys to enjoy it. So that's it.
Awesome. Dan.
I guess I went out of town, and I was up in near the Catskills, and I found this comic shop in the middle of nowhere, and I joked with my wife. I was like, "Oh my God, you picked the place with the LCS just for me? Oh my, that was." And anyway, they were trying to get rid of all kinds of stuff, so I got a bunch of dollar books, and I guess I'm just gonna show that off in a video soon. But This was in the dollar bin, right?
Ooh.
Cover issue 1. I got a bunch of these. These were all $1, right? These are like 20 each ish.
Wow.
I don't know. There was a bunch of crazy stuff in that dollar bin. I went nuts. I got like not only dollar bin, but I got like 4 for $1. These amazing books, and I ended up with like, I don't know, 60 comics for under $40 or something. I don't know. It was pretty nuts, but that was awesome. And I'm gonna do a cooking video for another vegan cooking video as the former chef of Wayne Manor. A ramen recipe. Because Damien's a vegetarian, right? So like the idea is like I go over recipes, like vegan recipes I developed for Damien, but I talk about them and how I don't really know they're Batman and Robin, so that's the running gag. And I'm like talking shit about them and teaching this vegan cooking recipe. So that's a running series I'm doing now as the disgruntled laid off chef, because Wayne Manor's no more. So I'm just like, doing this cooking video series instead.
I love it. I absolutely love that.
That's awesome. Congratulations, by the way, on having a significant other who lets you go comic book digging on a trip.
Well, she goes shopping though, right? So like, she goes. We just separate, I'll be like, I'll find you later, or you just find me here, because I'll be here still. After,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. My one more thing, I just want to give a shout out to the channel sponsors of Simple Man's Comics. PopCultureZone.com. I know you see a lot of intros to a lot of their videos. They specialize in raw comics, especially lots of 10s, and domestic shipping is only $4.99. So, and they also have slabs up there. But also kudos to not only channel sponsor but huge friend John Leone at D616 Comics. Him and his wife Erica, they've been doing a lot of whatnot sales as well. But they have a bunch of great exclusive variants of their own, and they also have other comics up on their website. So check them out, D616comics.com. I also show some of their books in videos on here as well. And they often give us the books that go into those awesome Patreon boxes. You just saw, if you guys check out Comic Man Andy, the box this past month was fire. All the boxes got great books in there, some fantastic covers. So if you're interested in that, you can also sign up at patreon.com/SimpleMansComics. But huge thanks to the sponsors, PopCultureZone.com and the616comics.com. And with that being said, guys, another great show. I will tease the discussion topic that we're going to have next week is, if you took away the MCU, Netflix, Amazon, all of these media outlets related to comic books, where would the comic book hobby be right now? That's going to be discussed next week. And with that being said, this is Brown Superman's Comics. We'll see you in the next video.
She pull up, hop out, then she swerve. Do your two-step, your little catwalk, make it work. Make it work, Jill, make it work. Strike a pose, make it work, Jill, make it